Captured by Women is brought to you by Nido Fortigro. Your love, their future.
Good afternoon, and thank you once again for joining us here today on Captured by Women on TV3. My name is Rosemond Aite, and I'm hosting the show today with Nanama. And together with our guests, we will be discussing a number of issues that trended during the week. One of the first things we'll look at is the recent earth tremor that rocked certain parts of Accra and the discussions that it generated. We will also look at the emergency response system we have in the country, and we are asking ourselves, are we ready as a nation? Should we have a major disaster hit? The drone health delivery system is still generating some controversy, so we will look into that as well. Remember, the show is sponsored by Nido and GTP. We'll take a couple of messages and return. Please stay with us.
Should an earthquake, such as what happens in Haiti, happen in Ghana, what would our emergency response be like? This is what we're talking about on The Spin today, because interestingly, in the wake of imminent earthquakes, there have been so many questions. Ghana has been riddled with many problems, including no-bed syndrome, a taxi burning right in front of a fire station, and firefighters basically attempting to cut the fire short. All these things are questions we have to ask. Do you even know how to perform CPR as we go into the festive season? Should someone choke right in front of you, what would you be able to do? These are some of the questions we're raising on The Spin this afternoon. Rosemond, you know, when it comes to our emergency response, I think we only talk about it when tragedies hit. And I think we have to move away from that reactive lifestyle and be proactive. You've got young people outside the country, and when you talk about CPR, immediately they know what to do. They have an idea, if not even practically being able to, you know, do the full haul. And I think that's where we have to start talking about these things, where it becomes our language. Immediately we hear fire, we know how to go about it. We all run towards the nearest exit. Do we even know? Are people conscious when they enter a building, looking out for where the exits are? These things are, I mean, we talk about it flippantly, but then should a real disaster hit us, I'm scared to say that majority of us will perish because we lack the knowledge. Just like the Bible says, for lack of knowledge, my people perish. And I think it will be sad because we've come this far, and by now, with technology and all the information being thrown out there, we should know how to respond to these emergencies.
Indeed, indeed. And, you know, sometimes when we talk about disaster management, our first point of reference or frame of reference is to look at, okay, what are the agencies doing? But we don't think to ask ourselves, are we ready personally, you know, in case disaster strikes, even in our home, as you said, you know. So we can never stop talking about it. The most important thing is to look at how can we do this, decentralize the conversation, start from the home level, even from the school level. You know, I know there are pockets of awareness drives being held in schools. I mean, I want to believe that the agencies, you know, who drive this have a master plan in place. But it's about time that we, you know, descale the conversation to look at it at our level, at our individual level, at our school level. And then before we now start also in tandem talking about hospitals, are they ready? Fire service ready to, you know, to rescue and respond appropriately when there are disasters. I mean, you talked about CPR, and I know that one of the shows we demonstrated. Yes, we demonstrated. I picked a few, but to be honest, when you asked me, I won't remember everything. So I think that we ourselves must own, you know, information, must be prepared to learn what it means or what we have to do in times of disaster. In order to, you know, prevent, you know, casualties, you know, needless deaths.
In movies, for example, we even see, and oftentimes it's foreign movies, you hear 911 and everybody seems to know what 911 means. That's the emergency code. You dial when you want the police, you want the ambulance. But in Ghana, how many people even know what numbers to call when you want the police or an ambulance or fire service? I feel we take it for a joke, but maybe if we started it when we were young in school, then you grow up knowing these things by default. But then again, when we even put out the numbers, do they work? When we call, how do they respond to us? Because I've had an unfortunate, well, let me, applaud the ambulance service because I've called a couple of times and they responded. And there was one particular incident where I wasn't at home, but then our help called that an incident, a burglary had occurred where she was hurt. And so we called the ambulance from where I was, you know, I communicated to them and they were able to trace the house and they went to pick her up to the hospital. And so that was because it was in the middle of the night. And so I applauded them for that. But I called the police. Not too different. I mean, it was a similar scenario. There had been a burglary in the neighborhood and we're trying to get the police to get there. And the response I got, I was trying to keep my voice quiet because the burglars were just across the street and they are shouting, Mami kasadin. And I'm like, but they're right there. Because if I shout, they'll know people are there and probably start attacking us. So equally, what is that response or training that the other person has to be able to be equipped enough to, you know, respond appropriately? Because if you ask me to shout, immediately I know you've lost it. You don't understand. Then I had, you know, a person attempting to commit suicide. And I was at a loss as to what to do because their phones went off. The person was not picking anymore. And I thought, okay, maybe the police would be in a position to help. I thought they could get some information or try and give me. And equally, what she asked me is, so what do you want me to do? And I thought, if I knew what to do, I wouldn't be calling you. Exactly. You know, and so these things are things we have to think about critically. And when we play with it, it saddens me because we don't see the gravity of what it will be when we have a state of emergency across board. But I feel if it happens in my house and I discover that, oh, the ambulance number is this and it actually works, I would encourage other people to learn about it and know that when you call, it actually works. And we all promote it from one end to the other. But if it's not working, if no one cares about it, then we'll all be in that, you know.
I must say that I must commend the National Petroleum Authority. I know they're doing an education drive on preventing gas explosions.
Yes,
and they've been at it for quite some time now. And I listen to it every morning when I'm driving to. And I must commend them. What to do when, you know, when you smell gas, how to air out, you know,
how to store the cylinders after you fill the gas.
So they're doing a great job with that. It will be great for the other agencies to do same, or even if maybe they are doing so, but we're not seeing them, you know, to amplify their efforts. And then most importantly, to coordinate. Because we have so many agencies in this space. We have the NPS, I said, is doing something. The fire service, I know they do, you know, frequent or sporadic public awareness, you know, to coordinate so that we get the buzz and we get the impact all at once instead of having them in droplets, you know, and then it all, you know, goes away. So it's a great thing that, I mean, it's a very important conversation that we need to continue having. And especially, as you said, Christmas is around the corner. There'll be a lot of cooking, you know, there'll be a lot of, you know, playing and all that, you know.
And I'm wondering, how many homes even have fire extinguishers or even know how to
use it? Is that a question you want to ask?
No, but it's something we have to be looking at. Everyone cooks in their home. Everyone uses some source of energy. And these things are prone to cause fires. And so if it's happening, what are you going to do? And you see, oftentimes, because of our working schedules and things, you leave children at home with maybe just a nanny. She's got her hands full. She's taking care of A, then she can't turn and look at B. You never know what the other one is doing. So could we get to the point, or even our households, how many of us teach them what to do? Maybe the fire extinguisher is sitting there, but no one has taken the chance to tell her, if you see a fire or if you smell gas, this is how to go about it. So let's make it, you know, a conscious effort. Start in your home. And then maybe when we start, it will trickle down. Everyone will get to know. Because if you teach that house help, when she goes to her own home, she will teach them also. They will teach others, and it becomes a ripple effect. But anyway, guys, we have been talking about our response to emergencies in Ghana. Are we adequately prepared? Should an earthquake such as what hit Haiti hit us, will we know how to go about it? Should there be a fire in a room where you are? Would you know how to maneuver about that? That is what we've been talking about. We certainly hope that in this festive season, you would empower yourselves, you get the knowledge and get the techniques to be able to prevent all these from happening so you can enjoy the Yuletide. We hope all the best. We wish you a Merry, Merry Christmas in advance, but stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll bring you some more after this break.
Welcome back. So the show continues with Big Bang 1, and we are discussing the earth tremor that recently shook buildings, houses, and literally the hearts of many Ghanaians, especially those living in Weja and Bawi. We have invited Engineer Ben Arthur, who is a civil structural engineer who has a lot of experience in earthquakes and structural disaster management, to enlighten us on this issue. You're welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right.
And greetings to all your viewers as well.
All right. So let's first of all start off by trying to establish some understanding and difference between what an earth tremor and an earthquake is. Is there really a difference between the two?
In simple language, when we say that there is an earthquake or tremor, what it means is that under the soil we have rocks, and the rocks have what we call fault lines. It's like cracks or lines of weakness, because the rocks are not just monolithic. It's different rocks put together, so there are joints and the rest. So when there's a movement, as a result of the movement of the earth or volcanic eruptions or whatever, then the rocks move against each other. So when there's that movement, then it brings up waves, which we call seismic waves. And then the waves dissipate energies, and that is what we feel as the shakings in simple language.
So when you talk about the fault line or some of the things where that would determine how strong a quake will be in an area against others, what are we looking at when it comes particularly in Accra? Because we hear residents in Bawe and Weija felt it more than I was in La Paz at the time, and I felt just a little thing which I even thought was a truck passing by that probably made, you know, that gave me that shake. So what are the other factors that determine where you live, whether it's earthquake prone or not, particularly in Accra?
Well, studies, you know, especially from survey, Geological Survey Authority, have done surveys over the years. Ghana, Gold Coast, or those days we were not called Gold Coast, you know, in 1615, as far back as 1615, has experienced, you know, earthquakes. And so they have the data, and they are able to plot to show us. As for us, the engineers, ours is to consume the data, which had been codified as map. And I don't know if your cameraman can help us, you know, look at this map. The red areas, not the outline of the Ghana map, the red areas indicate where we have, these are the earthquake risk zones. The red areas are the places that we have the highest risk. And that includes Ho, Akosombo, Tema, Accra, Kokrobite, Nyanyano, Weija, all the way to Nakwa. And then Elmina, Sekendi, and those areas. You know, these are for the coastal areas. So the high risk zones in Ghana, according to Ghana Geological Authority, you know, indicates these areas as the high risk zones. And then we have the second highest risk zones are Koforidua, Nsawam, Pando, Takwa, and its environs. So we have that. And then following is Obuasi, and the other is Kumasi, is a low risk zone. And then up north, Wenchi, and up north is the lowest risk zone.
Say an earthquake hits Ghana of a magnitude of 7.0.
That's a disaster. That is a serious quake, because what happened is measured to be at 2, if I remember very well. It's a tremor. When they say tremor, people use that term to indicate smaller waves, dissipation of small energies and the rest. But even then, people felt it. People have had cracks in their buildings and the rest. Once you're talking about 5.0 and above, it's up to 9.
Wow.
It's 0
7 is quite
to 9. So when you are 5 and above, you are in a big time disaster zone. So 7 is a huge disaster. And I'm unable to say that when it does happen, depending on where it occurs, we are well equipped to respond quickly.
Engineer Arthur, I know, and coming from your building construction background or civil engineer background, certainly in Ghana, there's supposed to be a law that ensures that we use all these data to our advantage. First of all, I'm interested in finding out if you're aware of any public sites that we have in Ghana that are placed in these earthquake-prone areas. And if they are, don't you think that then we failed? Because we certainly should have taken into consideration all this data before we planned where to site these public, institutions.
Well, thank you very much. If you look at the map that I gave you, virtually the whole of Accra, Tema, and most of our coastal areas are high-risk zones. But in Accra in particular, we have specific fault lines, but indications, let me be a bit scientific here because you have discerning listeners. When you take a map with a very small scale and you indicate a line there, what is the thickness of the line? Right. The line could be 2 kilometers, it could be 500 meters, it could be 2 meters. So that is not detailed enough. And we all acknowledge that our seismic data, especially codified into maps and the rest, for geological use purposes, is not detailed enough. But areas that, by history, like Weja, portions of East Legon and the rest, Tema, where we can specifically say that these are fault lines and be assured of it. When you put a public infrastructure there, individuals may make errors, but definitely not public institutions. And I had an occasion on another station to raise up the location of Tema, Bost. Right. That where it is situated, if there is any quake or tremor that goes beyond 2, 3, 0.0, that will be very disastrous for us because we're dealing with oil. We're dealing with something highly inflammable. If public institutions are cited in such a way that we have neglected, acceleration, let me be engineering, earth movement. A lot of buildings are designed to take up vertical forces, especially the small buildings. But when it comes to high-rise buildings, people don't normally see the draftsmen. They want to see us the engineers. So, of course, you want to consider the various forces. But the small buildings, people ignore the fact that apart from considering the vertical loads, we also have horizontal movement. And when you are designing a building, what we basically do to withstand earthquake, not earthquake to the scale of 5.0 to 7.0. I mean, when the earth opens up, it has opened up.
No, there's nothing you can do
but
about
the small ones, we designed the building that even if it will collapse, the collapse delays to allow for movement, evacuation, and the rest. But we have other buildings that little tremors it leads to its collapse, which we can basically solve by considering the horizontal movement or waves. But unfortunately, in most of our MMDs who have the authority to issue permits and the rest, have not considered. And I dare say, and I blame ourselves, when I say ourselves, a lot of us engineers, for our profit and for our benefits, we will not want to work for government because of the poor remuneration. So we are on our own, more or less. It's like the lawyers and some of you medical practitioners, you want to be on your own. So it's become a bit expensive to get senior engineers like us in the district assemblies to advise. But that does not mean that the assemblies ought not to advise, get the appropriate advice. So the time has come for us to begin to look at all these things. We also have special building materials that we don't consider as important in building in some of these areas. Yesterday, one professor made a suggestion one guy made a suggestion that why don't we go and trace the fault line and ask that to be demolished. But we know what we will face as a country. You have to go to court for order. People know people, sympathy,
who know people.
and the rest. So when you look at all these things, you could see, I beg your pardon, and ask for forgiveness from all viewers, that we have been highly ignorant of the fact that quakes lead to disasters and that we need to build to withstand it. Using wood to build. Yes, when there is a tremor, which part of the wood is going to break?
I was coming to ask that question, that how do we incorporate
if
certain
we use
materials.
Steel, it resists quakes. And in fact, if you look at Japan, which has one of the highest rates of earthquakes, people are building with wood.
Right. But the weather conditions, won't that also play a factor in our tropical area?
Our grandfathers have built with wood.
But our grandfathers didn't have the kind of dilapidation we're having and, you know, the cycles that we are having now.
No, we have to treat the wood
having more
well.
global warming than they were having.
Maybe as an engineer, my serious consideration as to whether what we are even saying is possible or not is where are we going to get the wood?
Where we're deforesting.
We may have to import timber, maybe sometime to come.
We don't even want to get there. But are there, before you jump or we forget about it, are there any laws from where you stand that put, you know, the citizen, the ordinary person in a position to protect them from building in sites where there are earthquakes or anything of the sort?
Let me be very blunt with you. The planners don't seem to have an idea of where to let people live and where not. Because the one who is strangled, who is in difficulty and wants to build is looking for land and has not been equipped to know all that is beneath the land, what could occur there. So is the ones, the institutions giving permits, they ought to know all these things. But it's a bit difficult. I've seen people build under high tension, you know, in Ghana. And when we have fought, I wonder where the transmitting, you know, engineers and the power producers will pass to go and do. But we have been issuing permits at the blind side of, you know, the laws. We have laws. They are not well codified, but we have them. If you look at our planning laws, if you look at our building code, you know, especially as an engineer, you are obliged to look for all this data to ensure that where the building is being sited, you know, is appropriate place. And not only that, it is also able to withstand a quake to some level. Obviously, not a fault line. If an engineer is making a recommendation, no good engineer will say that, go and put such a structure there. Let me mention this. I have also noticed within that high-risk zones that there are certain key structures that we build. And when you go and look, you are the ones who talk and Ghana listens, you know. Go and look. We have marketplaces in Adenta, in Tema, in sensitive areas that it appears nobody has really considered some of these things. When there's a quake, how do we respond? But quakes reoccur within long spans of years. So one wants to say that, are we going to ignore the land? Very expensive in Accra. Are we not going to build? So when you put 1 to 2 and you look at all the sites together, you are tempted to build even on a fault line.
Engineer, what I want to find out from you is, as you said, we have very discerning viewers watching us. Say somebody's out there, they want to buy land. What are the steps they should take? I mean, before they acquire the land, with your experience and your expertise, where should they go to? Who should they speak to if they want to find out whether the piece of land they are getting is located in an earthquake-prone zone? What should they do? I mean, just educate our viewers on what, if you're buying land and you need to do the necessary due diligence, what steps do you take?
Taking a random guess, you say come to them.
No, that's not what I'm going to say, because I'm not the only engineer in Ghana. And
no, I'm saying you'd say they should go to the engineers.
Oh yes, not only engineers. You can also go to the geologists. You know, because when it comes to seismic activities, you'll be able to get the information from them. But Geological Survey Authority, which we used to call department, you know, is the appropriate place to go for seismic activity advice. But of course, if you contract an engineer, we also go and get the data and report to you on that. But in Ghana, private persons ignore. The multilateral companies do well, and then some government institutions are very sensitive when it comes to building in certain areas, and they would want to get the engineering and geotechnical report, which would definitely have to cover seismic activities. They want to get, you know, reports on traffic and all that. So it's very, very, very important that you at least get to know the zone that you are building. If not the core details as to what we call acceleration details for an engineer to do calculations and the rest. As a property owner, you must care enough to know. And you see, it informs a lot of things. When you get to know that you are building in an earthquake-prone area or high-risk area, you know that you need to also take care during the quake itself. Apart from taking preventive measures, you must also make sure that when there is quake, what are you going to do and after? So, for example, there are buildings that we do not recommend, depending on where they are located. If we know they are very much located in areas that are high-risk zones, we recommend certain things not to be hanged on the building, because if there's a little tremor, it can fall and, you know, cause a lot of damage. So we recommend all this is those who are used to hanging beautiful things on their walls and the rest. All these things are advised, you know, depending on where you are located. But I pray that we don't have quake.
I certainly
we all pray so.
In our waters, because that is one of the dangerous things. Because if you look at the location of Accra, and we have an earthquake, which people commonly refer to as tsunami, when it happens in the sea, and the sea rises above 40 meters, 30 meters, I'm telling you, the whole of Accra
particularly
and
those
beyond
of us
will
who
be
can't
flooded,
swim.
because we are a low-lying area. You know,
All
40
right.
meters.
Well, we certainly pray that
thank
doesn't
you.
happen.
It is not intended to make you afraid.
No, certainly
not.
It's to let you
to
take
gear us up.
precautions.
Yeah, to
It
be
is to empower us.
Yes, I could feel your breath.
Anyway, Engineer Arthur, thank you so much for coming on the show and coming to educate us about earth tremors, earthquakes, and what we can do about that. On that note, we'll take a short break here. Please stay with us. The show continues.
So in the course of the week, when the discussion concerning drones for blood was still ongoing, the Ghana Medical Association did say that they weren't engaged in any consultation concerning this, and being a major stakeholder, we're wondering, why did this happen? But we are joined on phone by Deputy General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association in the person of Dr. Titus Bayo to help us understand this better. Good afternoon, Dr. Bayo.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Great. Dr. Bayo, we would like to understand what the position of the Ghana Medical Association is concerning the drones for blood saga. Is it that you were consulted or you were not?
Okay, so I can state on emphasis and emphatically that the Medical Association was not consulted in any form prior to this approval by Parliament or whatever, or the agreement that has been signed. We were not consulted.
Right.
Okay.
So at no point were you involved in any discussion with either Ghana Health Service or the ministry to find out what exactly your views were concerning the drones for blood?
Okay, we have never been involved. We have tried on our own painstakingly to gather as much information as we could.
Right.
And so people were even worried why the GMA was not speaking. Others thought while the debate was going on, we were too quiet. But we were trying to gather information as a professional body to come up with an objective view.
Right.
And when we tried to get information, it was difficult for us to get information. Be that as it may, as the media discussions went on, we followed keenly. And then we also searched and got some information. And then the executive committee of the association sat down to deliberate on it, consulted a few people, and then came out with a statement as we have it. And so we haven't had any formal or informal discussion with the Ghana Health Service or representatives of government in any form. Indeed, the Vice President mentioned it in his speech during our conference, but that cannot be taken to be a consultation. And we are also hearing that it was mentioned at the Health Summit. The GMA was not present at that Health Summit. And so we have never been involved on any forum on this.
Okay, so Dr. Bayo, what I want to find out is, what are the GMA's concerns with this particular initiative? What are your specific concerns about this initiative?
All right, thank you. As our statement puts it, the GMA believes that any form of technology that helps our healthcare is not necessarily bad. However, when you look at the drone technology for medical delivery as it's being proposed and being discussed in the media, it is a considered view of the GMA that alone cannot be a panacea to the problems in our healthcare system. We think that we need to fix our emergency system. We also think that our ambulance system, our referral systems, building capacity of health workers at various levels, and also situating this proposal within the primary healthcare structure. And we think these have not been properly done. And to the effect that these are not done, we think that paying the drone and thinking that that will be a panacea, it will not inure to the benefit of our healthcare system. So the GMA has asked that government should suspend it and have a broader stakeholder consultation to see how these other aspects we are discussing can be addressed. And if at all, if we need this drone technology now, and even if we do, should it just be rolled out nationally? Should we do a pilot first? Which level of the healthcare structure should it fit in? We think these are critical questions that need to be answered. They said it will deliver essential medicines. What are the drugs on that essential medicines list? What level of referral of health delivery can those medicines be used? What's the capacity of the staff at that level? We think these critical questions need to be answered before the nation can take a decision that we are using this technology or not.
But Ghana Health Service seems to have been in the know concerning this drones for blood issue, and they seem to have given a nod to this. Being that the GMA is under the Ghana Health Service, don't you think they're speaking on your behalf?
No, the GMA is not under the Ghana Health Service. The GMA is an association, it's a professional association of all doctors and dentists in Ghana. We have doctors in private practice, we have doctors in the teaching hospitals, we have doctors in agencies of the Ministry of Health that are not under the Ghana Health Service. So the Ghana Health Service or its representative can never on any occasion be a spokesperson or speak on behalf of the GMA. The GMA as a professional body has its own independent views, and we assess the thing objectively and we have made known our views. We do not know what level of consultation has been done, but it is obvious that even other health workers have also come out. For instance, the lab scientists have come out that they've not been consulted, and they also don't think that the current system as it stands will be beneficial. So I'm not sure the extent to which Ghana Health Service will just speak on behalf of all of us. No.
Very well. But in view of the fact that it seems government has approved this contract, and supposing it goes through, what exactly will be the stance of GMA?
Well, our stance remains the same. That if government wants a policy that would help the healthcare system, they need to have a broad stakeholder consultation. You may approve a policy at the ministry level or at the governmental level, but who are those who are going to implement the policy? It is your workers, it is your staff. And the doctors are a critical part of that staff. Nurses are a critical part of that staff. Laboratory scientists are a critical part of that staff. All that we are saying, until you have engaged all these people to pick our views, and before you go ahead and implement something like this, it may not be beneficial. We also think that in as much as these drones may have some advantage, we need to look at the issue apolitically. We don't want it politicized. So we are hopeful that government will allow the technical people, the workforce in the health sector, and people who understand the healthcare systems to make input. And then government should have an open mind, because it's possible, after consulting everybody, it may come to the fore that we do not need this drone technology at this time. It is also possible that after we have done this consultation, it will come out that indeed we need it, but maybe on a pilot level, or we need it but on a national level, or we need it but only at a secondary level of healthcare delivery and not primary. Because if you listen to some of the explanations, if you're a medical person, you would understand that some of them just don't add up. If you tell me that the drone will deliver blood to hard to reach areas like chief centers and community, at the chief centers, the cadre of health workers there are community health nurses who by their training are not even allowed to enter a vein. So how can they transfuse the blood? No chief center in Ghana has an attached laboratory that can cross-match the blood. So when a drone drops the blood there, how do we even know that this blood is suitable for this person? If we talk of the essential medicines list, we have not seen all the essential medicines. But if you take obstetrics, I'm a gynecologist and I can speak for my field. If you take oxytocin, which is one of the medicines we have heard, we have what we call a basic EMONC and a comprehensive EMONC. That's emergency obstetric care. This occurs at different levels of our health care. So if you go to the health center, a chief center that does not have a midwife does not conduct delivery. What would they need oxytocin for at that level? Right. Even if a woman delivers and is having PPH, oxytocin alone is not the solution. So we still say that things like our ambulance system are necessary. And I've heard people make the argument that if the roads are not good, then the drones will help. If the roads are not good, then we should look at air ambulance and not just drones. Because if a drone can drop a blood in a village and that woman still needs surgery and the drone cannot bring back the woman, have we helped the woman? No. We have only delayed care. Maybe even family would have used motor or something to get the woman somewhere. But now we are giving them false hope that a drone will bring them blood and that will solve the situation. But that may not be. That's why we are saying there are a lot of technical aspects of this, practical aspects of it that needs further discussion. And we are hopeful that now that government has reached out, they will come with open mind and will discuss this.
Well, Doc, government indeed has said, at least the Deputy Information Minister said that government is still very open to consultations and will be reaching out to stakeholders. But someone can make an argument that we don't have a perfect health system. And unfortunately, because of these inadequacies, we lose lives every day. And you can't fix everything all at once. So would it be beneficial to at least pilot or start the drone initiative going, whilst government concurrently looks at the other areas that needs to be solved, you know, in terms of the ambulance, in terms of the availability of beds and all that? Can't the drone initiative go on concurrently as government solves all the other issues across board?
Well, that is a fine argument, but then it comes to an issue of priority. And that's where healthcare workers who have experience in this field will be able to make an argument that we should prioritize. What we are rolling out in this drone technology is not a pilot. It's a national scale worth $12.5 million. That $12.5 million, how many functional ambulances do we have now? So if we were to prioritize, you mentioned pilots. A pilot may not be bad. We could decide that let's try it here and see. While doing that, let's put in the emergency call systems that are necessary. We are saying that it is possible that with these same resources or less this amount of resources, we could improve some aspect of the healthcare. We can never get a perfect system immediately. Even the developed world are trying to get a perfect system. But what the GMA is saying is, if you assess it and see, is this the best thing for us at this time? And should we just roll out on a national scale? That is why we have said that it is not bad per se, but let us listen to everybody and find out why the rush, why the hate. We have called for, we had no bed syndrome, and when that thing happened, we bemoaned the poor state of emergency and the fact that we didn't have ambulances. Government promised ambulances. A whole year has come. No ambulances have come yet. Yet we are able to pass this technology, this bill within a short time, and then we are ready to roll it out. So the priority issue needs to come in. And we think that without the other auxiliary services, this drone system may not work efficiently.
Okay.
Anyway, Dr. Bayo, would like to say thank you for giving us that clarity concerning GMA's position on the drone for blood issue. And indeed, Ghana Medical Association, we have been speaking to the Deputy General Secretary of the association in the person of Dr. Titus Bayo. Indeed, he has said that they weren't involved in the stakeholder engagements, but certainly they think it is good technology, but not appropriate for Ghana at this particular time. It shouldn't be a priority because certainly they could pilot it rather than go doing the full-scale national program and see where the lapses will be. Make sure everyone who is is in the health sector is involved so that if they do this program, it will be successful. But there are other challenges in the health sector which they should look at, such as ambulances, beds, infrastructure, many other things that will go to strengthen our health system. But in light of the fact that Christmas is coming, I guess we really have to look at what the Ghana Medical Association is also raising. 1 year down the line since no bed syndrome, we haven't heard anything from government, and then you spring up this whole drone issue. It's not that it's bad, like he said, is that the timeliness of this is not appropriate. We have other concerns, priorities, the roads. And I keep saying, if you improve the road access, you not only talk about the health system, you improve other things, economic gains of the people within the area. People can easily move their goods from one end to another, and everyone benefits at the end. Ghana in general will benefit. So maybe government should just listen. Like we talked about, there's no problem with saying that I've made a mistake and withdrawing or amending or changing something. At the end of the day, is the better good of the whole country that we're all looking out for. But anyway, that's all we have to say concerning this issue. We have shared our views. Dr. Bayo has also spoken about it, but it has been approved. $12.5 million to fly zip line contract, and they are going to be providing drones to supply essential medicines and also blood to far-reaching areas. But we'll take a break. We'll be back and we'll talk about what we've spoken about on this show. So stay with us. Don't go away.
Soon we've come to the end of the show, and as we typically do, we usually recap what we discussed. So today we discussed the recent earth tremor that occurred in certain parts of Accra. We had Engineer Arthur joining us and sharing some thoughts on it. The key message was that if you're building, don't just go and do anything by yourself. Try to find information, speak to the Ghana Geological Survey Authority, get a civil engineer to help you and give you information as to whether where you're planning to build is safe. We also discussed a national emergency response system and even tried to look at it at our level, at the home, at the school. Are we prepared? Are we knowledgeable enough in the case of an emergency at home or even at school? And even beyond that, how prepared are we, especially in this Yuletide, in this Christmas season, to handle disasters? So the point here is that get empowered, find information on what you need to do when you need to handle a minor disaster at the home level or at the school level. And then we also talked about the drone for health issue. And we know that the brouhaha is still ongoing. We had an official from the Ghana Medical Association talking about it. And their key concern is that it is not a priority at this time. There's so many issues that needs to be sorted out in the health sector, beds, ambulances, and that the drone for blood or the drone for health is not a priority, and that there needs to be more stakeholder engagement on that front. So these were the issues that engaged us on today's edition. We hope that you were informed and that indeed you enjoy the show. Join us next week for another exciting edition. And do remember, we are sponsored by NIDO and GTP. Enjoy your weekend.
Captured by Women is brought to you by Nido Fortigro. Your love, their future.